Hi, I'm CP. I'm a physical therapist here in Austin, Texas. And I've been talking about posture a lot. A couple of other videos out there on neck pain, tension headaches, upper back pain. Now I want to start targeting the lumbar spine, which is the low back. The low back is probably the thing I see the most in the clinic from my general population, mostly because we sit all day, every day. And so I kind of want to talk about maybe some of the little nuances of low back pain that maybe you don't know, some little tidbits that could help you at home. And I'm going to be using Lucy today to help me demonstrate a couple of different things. When we're talking about posture in the medical world, we call this bad posture is when you get slumpy, these shoulders come forward, this head juts forward. We call this rounded shoulder forward head posture, right? And basically this is sort of what starts the dilemma that can contribute to low back pain. And so people sometimes don't often equate those things. They think it's you lifted something poorly or you just don't have strong abdominal muscles. But if you think about like what we do all day, people sitting in these bad positions, whether you're at your computer, you're driving for 5 hours, you're on your cell phone, you're eating dinner, you're watching TV, this posture, this dysfunctional posture is sort of what now starts to contribute to low back pain. So I don't want you to forget the importance of just in general being in a good neutral position where this head and neck are in neutral. The arms are back, so these postural muscles between the shoulder blades are actually contracting, and then that puts the low back in a nice, neutral, safe position. So when we're talking about posture, you guys do whatever it takes to make sure that you learn how to sit like this. Have somebody remind you, cue you, work on even just sitting here. Like I promise you, Lucy in a minute's gonna be like, oh my God, that was so hard to hold this position for that long. And that's true. You almost have to train these muscles just like you would anything else. If you wanna get better at a mile, you go run a mile, then you make that mile faster. So here you're sort of having to train this system. We've been talking in the previous video about how the upper back starts to create tension, the neck gets tension when you're in a poor posture position, go back to a bad posture. And that creates tight pecs, which we've previously mobilized, and we worked on this upper back. So when we're talking about bad posture, one of the things I want you guys to think about is when we're in the sitting position, right? It's the low back or the lumbar spine now that's gonna take the brunt of this forward position, right? When we create stress and strain to the low back because this guy, T-spine and neck, aren't really doing their job, then he's gotta kind of do a job that's not his to do, and over time that will start to break the system down. And then if you think about the muscular attachments of the lumbar spine, the low back, in a seated position, right, this 90-degree angle basically takes anything that attaches the leg to the spine and shortens it. This is gonna be key to low back pain. So number one, posture, you've gotta clean that up. But number two, I wanna talk about how you can sort of address the hip flexor muscle group, right? It's a multi-muscle group that influences not just the leg, but through the pelvis and then into the spine. So when you think about the hip flexor muscle group, right, it actually starts deep through the abdominal wall, attaching to the low back, right? All of the lumbar, not all of them, but some of the lumbar segments. It's gonna travel through the pelvis and then insert just inside the thigh. So I want you to think about the impact that muscle can have on you if it not only influences the thigh and its position, the pelvis and its position, the lumbar spine and its position. That muscle group is huge. It's dominant and it becomes tight and very strong typically because we basically ask it to shorten all day when we sit. So the opposite then needs to occur. In order for us to create a little bit of freedom of movement to the low back and stop creating all of this tension and shortening and the pull that this muscle group has on it, you want to go opposite. You want to open it up. So we'll go into a hip flexor stretch series first, and then I'm going to show you some mobility techniques that you can do to manage the hip flexor. All right, so here's a simple hip flexor stretch. You can do this. Set a timer at work, on your phone, on your watch, have a friend remind you. You've got to stop sitting for a moment, get up and just do this simple little stretch. I'm gonna show you some nuances of the stretch so that you make sure you can maximize what you're doing in that short amount of time. So I'm gonna have Lucy just go into a little stagger stance. She's gonna put one leg back, one leg forward. If you're more comfortable with that foot out, you can keep it like that. If not, you can straighten it up, and you may try both ways just to see what you feel better. This does not need to be a big, long stride. A lot of people sort of miss the point on this one, but what you want is to just open this hip flexor up. So what I want you to think about, Lucy, is you're gonna kind of tuck your tail, we call it, right? Tuck it in. That allows you to sort of target that upper portion of the hip flexor. Show them, kind of go back to normal. There you go. Now tuck that tail again, and again, you will feel a little bit more of that stretch in the front. If you want to add a little something to it so you don't feel this one as much, you can take this opposite arm and just sort of reach up. And you can also work on a little bit of extension of this T-spine, because again, remember, you're trying to just do opposite of what you've just been doing for 3 hours, which is sitting at a computer usually, or driving. And you want to just open this up and have the spine go opposite of what it was. So again, you want to tuck this, open this up, have this hip flexor lengthen for you. And that should help relieve some of the tension and stress of the low back. So now we're gonna have her do the other leg. So Lucy, just swap. Again, remember, you don't need a really large stance. You want just to be able to open this hip flexor up. You wanna tuck that pelvis and tailbone under, and then again, if you need some extra, you just add that opposite side. Remember, with these stretches, you can hold anywhere from 8 seconds to 20 seconds, just sort of depends on how much time you have and what you're feeling. As long as you're just sort of repeating this action between both of these legs, because you've been sitting most likely for some period of time. So just open that up, and again, show them kind of a bad one. There you go, and then tuck that in. You notice how you feel a little bit more of that stretch in the front. Okay? So when we talk about mobility of the hip flexor group that we've been kind of discussing, a lot of people try to use a foam roller on the ground, or you can try to get in there with a ball. But remember that muscle belly group, you know, since it spans the entire lumbar spine through the pelvis into the femur, you're really only going to be able to tackle this meaty part right here. Tricky though, because this is also the femoral triangle. There's a lot of nerves and vessels that travel through there, and so one of the things that we did, we created the mobosystem that we were talking about earlier, so that you can actually have some leverage and a little bit more control over it. So what I'm gonna have Lucy do is go to the wall, and she's gonna kind of put the end cap into that meaty muscle belly, and you can basically do some cross friction to yourself, where you kind of go across the quad muscle that comes across the pelvis into those muscles. Open that a little bit. You can just put pressure if you want, but again, you should not be on anything that causes any kind of burning, tingling, numbness, things like that. You should be on a muscle, or you'll feel the tendon sort of kind of flick back and forth as you try to mobilize it. So you want to open that hip up. You can also rotate out just a little bit and get into this glute on the side, using the leverage of the wall, and kind of get that entire little wrap around the hip space. So again, that you can open this hip flexor up and relieve some of the tension from the lumbar spine, that low back region that usually you're going to feel a lot of stress and tension. People also get disc herniations, things like that, where they start to have nerve pain traveling down the leg. This is a way to sort of open that up and combat some of those issues. So to reiterate some of the critical anatomical features of this area, again, in the groin, basically this is the femoral triangle. I want you to think about it as far as your underwear line. You do not, I repeat, do not want to place anything in this zone here. The muscle bellies of the quad come up. There's a bone that you could basically palpate or touch, and you'll know that that's sort of, you don't want to go too far inside of that. So make sure you stay on these muscle bellies, and then you can see Lucy can take the end of that, and she can sort of cross friction a little bit, which is sort of where you kind of strum across the tendon or muscle. And again, if you were against the wall, this would be difficult to do because you don't have the leverage. So one of the unique features of the mobosystem is that now you've got this distance, and you can sort of convert these angles and change this to hit any of these spots that surround the hip and glute musculature. So remember, for low back pain, big issues, posture, you must manage your posture, because remember, the low back is sort of a consequence of not having mobility through the upper back, your T-spine, your neck, and how you are seated in the world. And then number 2, make sure you tackle these hip flexors. I've given you a couple of stretches. You've got some tools that you can use to get into that hip flexor region for some mobility. So make sure that you are managing some of those things that we don't often think about that are related to low back pain. Thanks for joining.
We at Wellness Plus specialize in all things health and wellness, ranging from yoga and fitness to massage and ASMR. Whether you are looking to target specific areas of tension or want to enhance your general self-care routine, we provide the tools you need to feel better, look better, and live better. We have courses for every level, whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro. Our courses provide a wide range in difficulty to accommodate your evolving flow.
Welcome back to Yoga with Jess. We are going to break down some really essential postures.
We are going to rock out with some of the most essential ab exercises that you need to have the abs that you've always dreamed of.
I've blended techniques to help you connect with students, and you can be a rock star teacher.
Wellness Plus is available on Amazon, which you can stream from your home on your phone, tablet, or TV. Join Wellness Plus today and get your first 7 days free.